Hello, I'm Charmy Harker, and I'm here today to discuss the errors, Indian scent errors in my collection and varieties, some of the varieties. I started collecting these in about 2000, around 2000, and I found one it was raw, and I didn't even know it was an error when I bought it until I took it out of the 2x2, and it was a split planchet, and you'll see that in here. And I didn't even know what that was. It was a clamshell. So that's what got me intrigued. And then I started looking more for errors. And what intrigues me the most are major errors and multiple errors on a coin, or an error with a variety, that kind of thing. So something more unique and more dramatic is what appeals to me. So, and that's what I call the wow appeal and the coolness factor. So when I look at a coin and it says to me, wow, you know, when I look at it, or gosh, that's really cool. So that's what appeals to me when I'm looking for the errors, or when I see one. So what are wow appeal and coolness factor, and what do they have to do with coins or Indian scents? So wow is an exclamation of surprise, wonder, or pleasure. And the coolness factor means it's attractive, desirable, excellent, extraordinary, and aesthetically appealing. So when I began collecting Indian scents, I wanted the coins in my personal collection to stand out and to be special and distinctive, because I felt that would give each one of them character and make them different from other Indian scents, like I was saying. Collecting average coins or coins with minor or hard to see errors and varieties doesn't interest me that much. I really like them to be more dramatic, as I said, and special. So I personally settled on 3 criteria that I use, and each coin I choose should have at least one of these criteria. It must be beautiful and have eye appeal, and preferably colorful toning. And I like it to have me say wow when I see it, and that's the wow appeal. So this particular coin is an 1894 with just the most amazing toning of any coin I've ever had, and it's the overdate, 1894 overdate S1. So the second thing is it must be have an interesting variety or error and make me think this is really a cool coin, the coolness factor. And that's what this one is right here. And we'll discuss this coin a little bit later. And the third thing, it must be bold and easily apparent, whatever the variety or error is. You have to really be able to see it, mostly with the naked eye. Sometimes I was really lucky and found a coin that had 2 of my criteria, like an error or variety with pretty toning, or even an error that also had a variety. So this one is that. It's got gorgeous toning, and it's a pickaxe. And this one is an off-center 1894 over 94, and it's the only one known. So what's the difference between an error and a variety? A mint error is created during the planchet or striking part of the minting process, when the equipment is not adjusted properly, or a malfunction occurs, and it's usually confined to one specific coin, or sometimes small batches struck one after another. A variety is caused by changes to the die before the coin is struck, and they can be intentional or unintentional, and they can be replicated on many coins at a time, even thousands. So first we're going to talk about errors, the errors in my collection. As I mentioned, I prefer to collect errors that have dramatic and easy to see minting mistakes, big mistakes. So the first one is, these are more common, but these clipped are pretty good size clips. So if a sheet of blank metal that's fed into the blanking press is misaligned with the cutting device, then the blanks cut from the sheet won't be circular. So curved or bow tie clips, that's this one right here, 1904, is created when the punch hits the metal strip that overlaps a hole from a previous punch. A straight clip, like this 1902, is created when the punch is overlapping the leading edge of the metal strip. Those are less common than the curved ones. And then ragged clips, like this 1906, is created from the unfinished leading or trailing end of the coin metal strip, which are supposed to be trimmed but are sometimes accidentally or intentionally skipped. So it's got a rough edge. So how do you tell a legitimate clip planchet from a damaged or intentionally cut coin? Even though there are other ways to determine the authenticity of a clip planchet error, a weakness in the rim opposite the clipped part of the coin is known as the Blakesley effect, and it's seen on most genuine clip planchet errors, and it's one of the easiest identifying features. So if you'll notice right here, it's indented, pressed down, and same with on the back. So it's directly opposite of where the clip is. Here's a closer picture. See how there's not a lot of detail right there. And here's some other clip planchet errors that I have in my collection. So this one has a really tiny clip right up here, the Flying Eagle. And the 1874 has pretty toning, so does this 1902 and the 1905. So off-center errors, they're very popular. I have two here that I'm showing, an 1863 and an 1864 off-centers. So they occur when a planchet is not properly positioned between the dies and the design is only partially struck on the planchet. The coin will be missing part of the design, and the larger the coin or denomination, the scarcer this error is. The higher percentage of off-centers, go back to that one. The higher the more percentage of the off-center, the more desirable and valuable the coin is. And here's some more. So like this one, even though it doesn't have a date, I really liked it because it's major off-center and it's got beautiful toning. So next are double struck off-center errors, and these two are 1880 and 1881s. They're very popular mint error type due to its dramatic appearance. Some of the most valuable mint errors are double struck coins. They're found on the earliest ancient coins all the way up to modern day coinage. And double struck coins will be struck correctly on the first strike, but then will be struck again either on center or off center. And the number of times a coin can be struck is infinite, and some coins are known with over 100 strikes on them. And there are 4 types of double struck coins. Double struck off center occurs when a coin is struck and then fails to be fully ejected from between the dies, then is struck a second time with the strike off center, and this is the most common type of double struck. Double struck on center in the collar occurs when a coin is struck and fails to be ejected from the collar die and is struck again with the second strike directly on top of the first strike. And the second strike is often rotated. So if you look closely here, you can see the imprint of the headdress, and it was turned, it was rotated. Right there and there, you can see really well, and then on the back as well. Another double struck coin right here, you can see it was just barely rotated. Right here, here. And it's right up here on the shield, yeah. And over here, you can see all this. Those are really neat. These are really neat coins. So a multi-struck coin can be either on center or off center, but must have at least 3 strikes present. And these two are not my coins. I just wanted to demonstrate the multi-struck coin, what they look like. And Rick used to have these. I think I got them off of his website. And then the fourth one is a flip over double struck. Again, this was from Rick's website. Occurs when the coin is struck, then flips over and is struck again. These are the most scarce, usually worth 50 to 100% more than a regular double strike without the flip over. So these are really pretty dramatic. The next series are indent coins, and these are ones without dates that I happen to have. So when 2 blanks are accidentally fed into the same collar and the die hammer strikes the 2 coins in the same collar, it creates a depression similar to a blank. And they're pretty dramatic, and but these happen to be right over the date. So the indented second strike is when an already struck coin rests partially on the planchet, and the result is a partial brockage strike coin and a double struck coin with the second strike off center and uniface. That's what these two are. So these are really neat, I think, because you know there's like 3 things going on here. And then a split planchet after strike is really dramatic too. This one is, it looks like it's 2 coins, but it's just the back and the front of the same coin. So it's missing part of the coin as well as the back of the coin. So it's caused by impurities in the alloy, and it's split. The split is due to poor adhesion of the outer layers of the copper core. One side has the coin image, the other side shows the planchet striations from the split. A split after strike planchet weighs less than a normal planchet. And this is struck on a split planchet before the strike. When a thin planchet enters the striking chamber, there isn't enough metal to fill the devices on the dies, and it creates a weak strike. The planchet never splits evenly or perfectly flat, so the weak strike could happen all over or to any portion of the coin. So this is that clamshell I was telling you that got me started my interest in collecting errors. Again, I found this thing raw, and I didn't know it was split because you couldn't see it through the 2x2. So a clamshell split causes a coin to split horizontally, but not completely. Both halves of the coin remain attached and look like an open clamshell. This coin is the very first Indian cent that I discovered raw and started my fascination with errors. So my photographer, who Chris mentioned is really good, Todd Pollock, he actually is here at the show, working for Great Collections right now. Anyway, he took these really good close-up pictures so you could see how it looks from the edge of the coin. And then planchet laminations. You'll see varying degrees of laminations on planchets, and for me, the more dramatic the lamination is, those are ones I would collect. You can often see little pieces of laminations on planchets that are small and minor, but I really like the big ones. So they are planchet errors in which the surface of the coin cracks and flakes. Lamination errors can develop before or after the strike and are closely related to split planchets and clamshell splits. So here's 2 that I got recently. Pretty dramatic. This one's really cool because I'm in Flying Eagle. So wood grain planchets, it's a popular term that people use to describe coins that have a wood grain look to them, almost like oak. And they're caused by improper mixing of the copper and the zinc in the coil stock that planchets are punched out of. And it causes the planchet to have a light and dark streak or streaks in the metal and creates a wood grain effect on the coin. This is a very dramatic wood grain look to it. It's not, evenly toned on the planchet. This is like, night and day. Some collectors like them and others avoid them, which is so true. More commonly seen on cents minted in San Francisco from 1908 on. This dramatic wood grain 1908 S also has a repunched S. So it's got both things. So next we move on to strike-throughs, or struck-throughs as they say. This is the second coin I found, again raw, and when I was looking at it, I noticed that it had these lines through it, and I thought it was really fascinating, and so I looked at it more closely and discovered it was struck through a piece of thread or cleaning cloth from a thread. So strike-throughs are caused by an object that comes between the blank and a die at the time of striking. The object's outline is pressed into the blank's surface. Staples, metal, shavings, nails have been seen. Also soft objects such as pieces of cleaning cloth, threads, and grease. So you can see it starts over here, goes all the way up and around Liberty and all the way back down to the date. So this was one of my favorite pieces as well. Here's a couple more. So this 19-0S actually goes from rim to rim. Had some kind of, string or cloth, piece of cloth right there. And then this one has it right here. So this one was a strike through and the Scarface variety, which is a hard, it's kind of a rare variety. It has these die lines right here. The coin is another heir in my collection with a bonus, very cool variety, or vice versa. The S14 Scarface has numerous raised lines on the portraits surrounding the surrounding field area over here too. It has a blundered die and seems to be rare. The lines could have been caused by aggressive scratching of the face of the die with a pointed object such as an awl. It's also possible that the lines were caused by a mass of small strands of fibers that got caught on the die during the hubbing process. A lot of this information that I've gotten about the varieties is in Rick's variety book, Attribution Guides, and I attribute him at the end. The strike-through error was mostly caused by being struck through grease. So right here, down at the bottom, it's struck through grease and it's all obliterated down here. And then it also has that Scarface. This one I just found last week. I just got this one. So it's struck through, it's not an Indian, but it's so cool I had to put it in here. It has a staple embedded in it still, right here. So it was really cool. I had to pick that one up. So now we're going to talk about brockage errors. They're another fascinating error for me because they just look really, really cool. They're a result of a planchet and normally struck coin being in the coining chamber at the same time. They may overlap each other, rest on top of each other, or be of different sizes. The brockage second strike is an exception due to a planchet and a brockage coin being in the coining chamber together. When a coin sticks to the upper or lower die, several brockage strikes may be struck from the same coin, known as a die cap. The first strike from a capped die will result in a mirror brockage that will exhibit a perfect incused mirror image of the design like this one. I found this one raw at a local coin show and didn't pay that much for it, but it was the most fascinating thing when I saw it and I sent it in and got it graded. It's just really cool because this is so big, and spread out. So this is a reverse brockage second strike. When a brockage coin partially rests on a planchet, a partial counter brockage strike coin results. Also produces a double struck coin with a second off-center strike. A corresponding depressed and slightly enlarged incused mirror image of the already struck coin appears on the opposite side. Okay, this is a brockage strike of a smaller coin or fragment, and it's a fascinating striking error. It occurs when a planchet and an already struck fragment or smaller coin are in the coining chamber together. The double struck image on one side of the fragment is created and a flattened enlarged design appears on the other side. The second coin with a strong strike on one side and a depressed and slightly enlarged incused mirror image of the already struck fragment is produced on the other side. And you can see the design right up here. It's hard to imagine how that one occurs. And this is one of the most recent ones. I found this one just before I found the one with the staple. So retained cuds are pretty common and also popular. I like them when they're huge and it looks like the die was about to break away. So it's a fragment, a retained cud is a fragment that breaks off the edge of a die but is held in place. Retained cuds are rarely found in connection with the hammer die because gravity usually ensures that the fragment falls out on the hammer die. And these are two that are pretty dramatic right here. Whoops. With the cuds right here. So now we're going to move on to varieties. There are many different Indian cent varieties, including the top 100 varieties that Rick has published, a few of which I have in my personal collection. As with errors, I really enjoy collecting varieties that are interesting, bold, and easily visible without high magnification. Okay, so this coin is really special. I found this coin raw and brought it to Rick, and he gave it a variety designation. So it's a dramatic variety, and this is what Rick actually wrote in the attribution guide. The southwest corner of the E is raised with the die break or gouge, possibly by a foreign object or from a flaw in the metal that caused the die to break during the hardening process. The break could have formed during use, so this die may exist without the flaw. This damaged die was discovered by and attributed to me and has an interesting and unusual phallic shape. Here we go. So I didn't notice that it had this shape until I posted it on the PCGS message boards and people turned it sideways and showed me what it was, what it looked like. So we call it the penis coin. But it is a very unusual place for a die break. I haven't found another one. I look at all of the 62s I come across and I haven't seen another one. So they must have discovered it pretty quickly. So now we're going to talk about damaged dies, and the pickaxe is a really popular one because of the shape of what it looks like. So there's a damaged die or gouge in the shape of a pickaxe between the ribbon and the last feather, and it's a very popular variety as the die damage is easy to see with the naked eye. And this particular coin is one of my favorites because of the toning on it. It's just gorgeous. But yeah, see, it's right here. There's several of these different dates of coins with these die file lines. So in the 1862, according to Rick, if the die file marks were made midway in the die's life, then this may be a die state. Marks this deep, as seen on this 1862 cent, the S10, were likely made during the die production and when the dies were in a softer annealed state, in which case it would be seen on all die states. So you can see these vertical lines here. They're on the 75 too, I think, 1875, yeah. And then this is a fun coin. It's concentric lathe lines on the 1864. They're produced by a lathe that shapes the cone-shaped face of the unfinished working die. The cone is supposed to be polished smooth before hubbing, but if polishing is omitted or inadequate, the surface will remain covered by concentric lathe lines as seen in this 1864 bronze cent. So if you look closely, you can see all these circular lines. Looks like a bullseye target. Can you see those on there very well? Right here. That's an interesting variety, and a lot of them are overlooked. I just bought one for my inventory, an 1864 bronze, and when I looked at it, it had these ley lines, and I hadn't noticed it at the first time I looked at it. So how are repunch dates created? Until 1909, each die's date was placed by hand using a hard steel punch and a hammer when the die was annealed, a soft state. In 1909, the mint began placing the date on the master hub. A repunch date is produced when a numeral or several numerals is punched more than once into a master or working die with movement of the punch or die between impacts. Some repunch dates are subtle and others are very extreme. These two are the most extreme in the Indian cent series, the 67/07 and 94/94. And then 69/9 is very popular. It's not as bold, but it's very popular and you can see it, even on low grades. So this is one of my favorite coins too in my set. This 1867/07 is one of the top repunch dates of the Indian cent series, and it's my personal favorite. Rick Snow calls it a bold, naked eye variety, which is true, because when I show it to, even my customer just bought one today, and he was looking at the 94, and I said, well, have you seen the 67/07? He goes, no. And I said, well, you can see that one with the naked eye. And he looked at it and he bought it right away because he was shocked at how bold it is. Very scarce. This is a very scarce one within the semi-key date year. And it has a good premium in all grades on this 7/07. And then of course the 94/94. It's in the top 5 varieties in the series. The initial date was punched with too high a slant on the right side. It's on the target list of all collectors looking to cherry pick a rare variety. Repunching is easily visible in all grades. And this one has that total wow appeal. And the second one in my collection, which I mentioned earlier, is off center. And it has a coolness factor. So I have no idea how this got this color. Do you, Rick?
I don't know. Looks like an album.
It does. Had to have been stored in some kind of album with the rim toning like that. It's really cool. Really pretty. I have that one here. You guys can look at it. So again, the popular 69/69 is repunch date is very popular. It's an extremely popular variety that commands strong premiums in all grades. The S4 has basically the same repunching, just different date position. Originally discovered by Walter Breen in the 1950s as an overdate of 69/68, dealers convinced album makers to include this overdate in their coin albums. This enticed collectors to buy a coin that didn't really exist until just to fill that hole in the album. It was determined in the 1970s that the 69/68 was actually a repunch date and not an overdate. It still remains very popular, especially in circulated grades. And like I said, this one has a repunch date and it's got pretty toning. And here's some other repunch dates in my set. Not as bold, but they're interesting because you can really see them sticking out. So how are misplaced digits created? You can see this one sticking out of the pearls here. They can be accidental, but most are caused by a mint employee using a date digit punch to test the punch on the die. The digit would be punched in an area where the strike would obscure the digit, so it wasn't seen on the struck coin, but sometimes the placement was miscalculated. Some coins will show evidence of a misplaced digit, sometimes with just one digit and sometimes all 4 digits. Depending on the coin series, misplaced digits are often found in the denticles below the date or near the base of the bust. I prefer the ones that are on other parts of the coin, not necessarily in the denticles. Personally, that's just my preference. So this is the one in the pearls. The base of the 1 digit is boldly visible sticking out of the bust point in the first pearl. A few of the high-grade examples known come with a vivid purple toning like this one in my collection. It's likely that the purple tone examples of this variety were stored in sulfur-laden tissues or envelopes. So this one's really, really beautiful. You can see the one there. So, and then of course the 97 one in the neck, the base of the 1 digit is boldly punched into the neck, and it's very easy to see this variety, and one of the top varieties of the Indian Scent series. You can see it right there. And then the double die 1873, king of the double dies here. So I don't have in my personal collection the S1, I have the S2, which is all the letters except the L in Liberty are doubled. The 1873 S1 has become the top variety in the series and one of the best cherry picks in the entire US series. Since blank dies have a conical head, the wide doubling is visible mostly in the center of the obverse. The first hubbing went only halfway down, and the second hubbing was rotated slightly, completing the impression of the die. Like I said, I only have the S2. And if you ever go to my website, my story, how I got started in coins, is published on there, and it talks about one of the first discoveries I made, or cherry picks I made, was I bought a S2 coin off of eBay, not knowing that it had the double Liberty, and immediately I was offered double the price I paid for it. I paid $110 for it. It was mint state, raw. And somebody immediately emailed me to buy it from me, and so that made me look at the coin when I got it closer, when I got it in the mail, to see why this guy wanted that coin so much. If he hadn't have done that, I might have missed it, because I didn't know about varieties back then. I was just getting started. And I found it, that it had the double Liberty. I got the book out and was like looking to see exactly why this guy wanted this coin. I ended up selling it for $2,000 at the Long Beach show. So that's when my kids realized that collecting pennies could be profitable. So this is another popular variety. It's the off-center clash die, 1880. You can see very clearly the clashing. It's a very cool variety, quite popular and widely sought after. So a blank die is misaligned to have a conical face. And the clash was made on the face and extended to the center of the apex of the cone. Denticles are visible inside the E in 1, and due to metal movement on the die after the clash was made, the clash is also partially obliterated on either side of the wreath. It indicates that the clash was on the die prior to hubbing and was impressed deeper into the die while being hubbed. So it's really a neat variety, and this is a pretty one too. So that's pretty much it, but I have something special that I brought. Even though these next two coins are technically not an error or a variety, to me they still exude much wow, appeal, and coolness factor, as you will see. Like my little graphics. So this is a Civil War token I recently purchased, and I had talked to Rick about it. It's struck on an 1863 Indian cent, and you can see the underlying coin all around it. See right here. Here's the portrait right here. And this is a nice high grade as well. And it was in the Q. David Bowers reference collection. So it's really pretty, and it's really neat with the, when you look at it, you can see it here in hand. You can see all the doubling, or the Indian cent underneath it. This next coin is the cream of my collection. It's an 1870 aluminum die trial, and there's only 2 known of this. I acquired this spectacular pattern sent a few months ago. There are only 2 known to exist. The other one is a 66, and it's stunning. And I was offered that one too, but it was so much more money. As you can see, it has deep mirrors and beautiful cameo contrast. And this piece came from the Loy Louder collection, SD's sister, which was sold in 1983, and it surfaced in the Dixon collection in 2021. And I'm not a general pattern collector, but I just couldn't pass up this opportunity to own this one. It's pretty cool. So of course, there are many more interesting and fascinating Indian scent errors and varieties with even more wow appeal and coolness factor to be found. Whenever I'm at a show or hunting for coins on the internet, I'm always on the lookout to add some more of these to my collection. As I'm sure all of you fellow collectors can relate, finding a new coin to add to my collection brings me great joy and huge satisfaction. That's me, great joy. And this is where I gathered most of the information for this presentation. So if you'd like, I have not all of them, but most of the coins here I brought, and you guys can take a look at them and examine them. Now, just be aware, they have prices on them. They're not for sale. I put prices on all my personal coins so that my kids and family will know what I value them at if I'm not around. So just because they have prices, don't think that you can buy them. Thank you.
Okay.